Baiklah, bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Kita mulakan ya. We begin our class on topic 5 with the title Requirements Engineering. So we've learned previously chapter 4, we learned about project management, and we already known on chapter 2 and 3, the SDLC and the types of SDLC that you've learned, whether it's sequential, whether it's iterative, and then you learn about project management. Now this is where your work begins. During this phase started after project initiation started. Bila kita dah mula dengan project initiation dan contract project semua dah get it done, dah clear, then you can begin with the work on defining the requirements thoroughly with the details. Baiklah, so what we're going to look at this chapter or look into this chapter, we're going to learn about requirement engineering. What are the activity, and then what are the techniques and what are the documents that supported this activity, its workflows and the diagrams that involve, and of course the most important thing which is the types of requirements that we're going to learn, because kamu akan apply this activity dalam project kamu nanti, which are the functional and non-functional requirements. So kena biasa dengan term functional and non-functional requirements, because lepas ni kamu akan belajar subjek-subjek seperti ISP550, lepas tu apa lagi, mana yang berkaitan dengan system development, FYP. So you have to able to capture at least the functional and non-functional requirement for the development. Okay. So by the end of the course ataupun by the end of the chapter, you should be able to define the requirement and requirement engineering, describe its activities, and describe what are the information gathering techniques and how to use it, and able to describe your functional and non-functional requirements. So you can use your project as part of the example that can you use to reflect this description of functional and non-functional requirement. So kita pergi ke definition dululah. Definition, we look at the definitions of requirements and requirements engineering. Okay, requirements, what is it means by requirements? Requirements is something that we must have, kan? Benda yang perlu, benda yang asas, benda yang kena ada, benda yang tak boleh tak ada. Okay. Tapi siapa yang bagi definition tu? Who defines the requirement? So benda ni yang kita kena communicate, investigate, dan juga negotiate dengan user, dengan klien kita, dengan user kita. At this stage saya akan bagi gambaran yang kita ni developers team. Contohnya lah sebab gambaran kita ni sekarang ni sebagai team developer. Yang mana kita akan communicate dengan user untuk elicitation. Maksudnya gathering, investigating, agreeing and validating dia punya requirements. Maksudnya apa benda yang kita kena buat untuk kita offer kepada klien kita, apa yang kita akan hasilkan dalam sistem kita according to. Sebab team developer ni through the contract kita berbayar kan. Contract tu adalah agreement kita to carry on with the task, with the project. So requirement engineering basically, kalau kita cakap pasal engineering is a discipline. Yang mana disiplin tu ada systematic activities dia. Systematic approach, ada systematic activities, maksudnya dia ada tertib dia, ada step dia, ada fasa-fasa dia. Yang mana Kalau we talk about requirement, we're going to speak about specification. Okay. Specification, and of course specification is basically, well, dalam bahasa laymannya is basically the documents lah, the spec. Dia cakap kalau pergi kedai komputer nak beli komputer kan, spec dia ada tak, nanti dia bagilah. And management of requirement. So basically requirement engineering memang kita punya core knowledge lah untuk khusus ni untuk course ni. So requirement can be something that yang bila kita bercakap, this is communication issues lah. When we investigate, when we gather information from the users, it consists of high level abstract atau high level communication, ataupun benda tu masih lagi can be ambiguous, boleh jadi it can be interpreted more than one meaning. So that's why we have to clear it up. Kita kena make it clear. Jelaskan apa bendanya. Kalau dia maksudkan 1, 2, which is katakanlah dia maksudkan 12, maka kita faham itu pun adalah 12 tanpa ada pemahaman yang lain. So we have to detail it out. Why? Kalau tak nanti dia akan jadi ambiguous. Itu yang kalau ambiguous, benda tu akan jadi tak jelas. So mungkin ada mismatch ataupun mis-expectation yang tak sama, mismatch of expectation or unfulfilled of expectation dalam service kita. Okay. So requirement is basically could be in any, maksudnya high level abstract statement tu dia can be in natural languages. But then the meaning of it is how well the user can articulate, maksudnya berapa jelas user boleh bagi perjelaskan apa yang dia nak, dan bagaimana kita pun menginterpretkan seperti mana yang dimaksudkan oleh user. Okay. So dalam okay, as we can see, once kita cakap pasal project initiation kan, sebelum ni once kita come out with the proposal, kita bid for the tender or for the contract, and we win the contracts, then we started do the business for project development, for system development for this project. So most of IT punya kita ni basically based on project lah ataupun contract basis, project basis. So project basis usually di dalam bentuk like 2 years, 3 years. Kalau more complex, probably 5 years. Kalau tak pun 3 years on the development and then another 2 years on maintenance. Contohnya. And then probably another company pula, different company ataupun different IT team pula yang dapat contract for that maintenance. Contohnya lah. So it can be in any situation, depending on the stability of the IT company lah. Alright. So dia mesti, bila kita sebut pasal we win the budget or we win the bid, we have the contract. So when we have the contract, so kita can start with functional requirement activities. But then again, dalam contract itself, must be defined the detail. Itu yang saya nak dalam task 1 berkaitan dengan projek kamu ni lah. Berkaitan dengan task 1, saya nak kamu detailkan dalam form struktur yang saya bagi, yang table-table kotak-kotak tu. Ada dekat satu bahagian tu adalah dia punya activity. Because that is how kita state the contract, seperti mana yang klien nak dan kita deliver. Alright. So there are 2 types of requirements. Satu untuk user requirement, satu untuk system requirement. When we talk about user requirements and system requirement, it's basically a documentation report dalam bentuk written statement. Okay. So untuk user requirement, focus audience yang akan baca these types of documents adalah daripada klien ataupun customer kita. So untuk tulisan ataupun the writing that we usually do in the user requirements, kita akan guna more a lot on natural languages. Kita buat dalam bentuk statement lah yang mudah difahami oleh yang mana audience membacanya adalah daripada klien kita dan ataupun customer kita. Okay. So tak boleh too details lah. Kita kena be generic but then be clear. Yeah. Whereby the system requirement is for the developers team. Punya reference and documents, description. It's a detailed description of the system function, service and operational constraint. So kalau kita bagi system requirement, because team developer, they already have a good knowledge on what's going on dalam system requirement. Tapi kita bagi juga sistem, cara kita tulis untuk system requirement, kita minta klien baca, dia tak jadilah sebab dia akan jadi terlalu detail. So customer dia tak boleh nak garap benda tu lah. So that's why there are two types. So basically the teams kena provide user requirement dan juga system requirement. Okay. So the system requirement kita gunakan sebagai part of the contract untuk project kita. Alright, ini adalah contoh how we write lah inside the requirements documents. Yang mana satu untuk user dan satu untuk team developer. So kalau contoh ayat yang ataupun the writing style yang kita akan gunakan adalah ada dekat sini So meaning contoh dekat sini user requirement definition one to referring probably the process that we are agree upon So the main care system shall generate monthly management reports. So dia nak generate monthly management reports. Dalam report tu dia nak apa? Dia nak prescribe cost of drugs by each clinic in that month. So ini adalah apa yang user akan baca lah. Tapi system requirements kita kena detailkan according to dia punya specification. So very detail lah. Kita kena break down. Itu yang kita ada WBS WBS apa? Can anybody bagi saya the long term for WBS? Kita dah cakap pasal WBS sebelum ni kan? What is WBF? WBS?
Work breakdown structure.
Alright, work breakdown structure. Siapa tu ya? Tak nampak saya.
Saya yang dia. Nasri.
Alright, okay, good. Very good. So work breakdown structure. So from that understanding, katakanlah klien kita cakap, kita nak monthly generate report untuk drug prescription on each clinic. That is what they want. So kita dalam proses gathering tu information gathering, kita tanya how it done. So kita kena interview lah dalam proses interview, through discussion ke, through meeting ke, through workshop ke, kita tanya dia. So dia describe lah how usually they do. Apa benda item yang kena ada. Apa benda when you prescribe the drug, how you prescribe the drugs. And what are the cost of the drugs. Apa benda yang nak kena calculate in order to generate this monthly report. Sebab dia minta cost of drug prescribed. So nak dapatkan cost tu mesti sebelum nak dapatkan cost tu apa bendanya yang akan terhasil. Apa yang benda yang kita kena accumulate. Ada formula tak? So benda tu kita kena clearkan dengan client how they do it. Sebab kita nak automatekan that process in our system. So the work breakdown structure can be, kalau daripada user requirement tu kita dapat satu statement. Tapi system requirements tu kita breakdown menjadi 1.1 sampai 1.5. Yang mana dekat sini dia describe kalau you perhatikan dia ada beberapa elemen yang kita kena quick to pick up lah satu dia punya timeline, ada constraint ke tidak, constraint dari segi masa, ada constraint dari segi approval ke role, maksud saya role, ada orang yang memverifykan dia ke, contohnya So kalau dekat sini dia kata, on the last working day of each month, a summary of the drugs prescribed. Nak hasilkan summary tu, usually summary terhasil bila kita ada beberapa kerja sebelum kita hasilkan summary kan. So what are those? A summary of the drug prescribed, their cost and the prescribing clinics shall be generated. So kita assume they have more than one clinic here. Yeah. So the system shall generate the report for printing. For printing after 17:30. Maksudnya 17:30 ni pukul 7, pukul berapa? Pukul 6 Pukul 6 ke?
5:30 bila.
5:30 Okay, pukul 5:30. So maksudnya that is the constraint. Okay. Another constraint is after 5:30 ni on the last working day of the month. So you have to make sure that the information is correct. Bila nak generate So a report shall be created for each clinic. So it's another thing that you must confirm dan juga achieve lah It shall list the individual drug names. Now this is the start of getting the items related to the generating of reports kan. They shall list the individual drug names, okay, total the number of prescriptions, then the number doses prescribed, and the total cost of the prescribed drugs. So benda ni macam mana kita dapat for 1.3? It's basically through the investigation of information and information gathering. So kita interview lah klien kita. So kalau macam ni, bahagian mana yang akan laksanakan aktiviti ni? Siapa yang take part on this activity? So kita akan interview dia. Alright. So siapa supervisor yang related? So we can identify berapa role yang terlibat untuk generating the monthly reports on cost of drug prescribed. Okay, that is the breaking down. But then when we breaking down, dia kena clear. Dia tak boleh ada more than one meaning. So that's why it cannot be ambiguous. Okay, dia kena clear. So we all have the same interpretations of the word ataupun the statement ni. Semua orang mempunyai pemahaman yang sama. Then we can say it's clear. Yeah. And then dia kata if drugs are available in different dose, stated berapa skala ataupun the unit measurement yang kita gunakan untuk describing each of the items and then access to drug cost report, ni bercakap pasal accessibility. Access to drug cost report shall be restricted. Ni another constraint. Restricted to authorized users that are listed on the management access control list. So this is you must obey. Kita kena laksanakan, kita kena fulfill this one. But then again, from this you can see there are certain functional requirements, then are also non-functional requirement here. But this is what we call specification. Alright. Ada soalan ke setakat ni? Kalau tak ada, kita pergi ke apa yang dimaksudkan ataupun the types of requirements. Kita ada functional and non-functional requirement. This is the most common terms yang kita sebut lah. Tapi sebenarnya kita ada satu lagi requirements, tapi we don't usually, kita understood that is the domain basically dia ada 3 lah. The functional requirement, non-functional requirement, and domain requirements. Okay. So domains requirements ni usually they refer kepada constraint on the system from the domains of operation. Contohnya kalau we check on inventory kan. Inventory for pharmacy, probably the domain requirement is different from inventory yang kita kena manage untuk kedai kasut contohnya. Untuk kedai baju. So definitely the constraint and requirement and restriction is different. So we have to what we call it kena faham kita buat sistem ni untuk domain apa. Okay, because different domain have different requirement, especially on information, accessibilities, kerahsiaan tu semua kena berbeza based on the domain. Alright. So on the functional requirement, kita tengok it's basically the statements of services of the system should provide. So may state what the system should not do. Maksudnya the capability tu kita kena statekan apa yang kita boleh buat dan apa yang kita tak buat. Yeah? So that's why the scope of what we can do or what we would not do, kita kena define dalam kontrak. Okay. The non-functional requirement is the constraints on the services or function offered by the system. Okay. Is to apply the system as a whole rather than individual features. So non-functional is something that kita tengok dari segi keseluruhannya. Okay? It works as a whole rather than individual functionalities. Okay. So basically kita dah tahu bahawa functional requirement is something that we should do, we should provide. Yeah. And then we also functional requirement macam tadi tu, kalau for user requirements dia adalah the written style is different. For system requirement, the different style, writing style is different. Yeah, why? Because the audience of intended for reading the requirements is different. So it contains of high level statement, meaning it's dalam bentuk natural language dan juga supported by diagram as well. Yeah. So it describes the system service in detail. For example, dekat sini dia kata a user shall be able to search the appointments list for all clinics. That is the statement. Okay. Maksudnya functionality untuk kita provide, maksudnya kena ada search button, kena ada search features. Yeah. Functionalities to search appointment, but not only one clinic, but all clinic. Okay. So there are also some issues kita nak search macam mana. Kita nak search appointments, kaedah dia, approach dia macam mana, teknik dia macam mana. So that is development team to decide. So that's why dekat situ mungkin ada different interpretation, provide a simpler approach, a simpler functions that would limited to certain what we call limited to certain function. Contohnya kalau you guna single search functions, probably tak berapa high end lah. Kalau you guna multiple item to search, then it probably give better solution for the client. Okay, so the system shall generate each day for each clinic a list of patients who are expected to attend appointments on that day. So these are the capabilities. This referring to the functional requirements. Okay. And then again tadi saya cakap pasal ambiguous, something that is can be interpreted by more than one meaning. Okay, bila kita baca statement tu, setengah orang interpretation dia tak sama dengan yang lain sebab statement tu sendiri ambiguous. Statement tu sendiri yang menyebabkan people have more interpretations. Okay. So for example dekat sini kita kata search tadi user intention, apa yang user nak, dia kata search for a patient name across all appointments in all clinic. Tapi bila developer yang bacanya mungkin dia interpret search for a patient name in an individual clinic. So user chooses clinic, then search. So how we going to go about like this? So developers pun kena clear that ataupun bagi multiple example on the scenario on what going to happen. Based on this user statement ni, user nak ni. So during the investigation tu, communication between the user and developer is very important. Alright. Alright. So basically apa yang dia nak is user shall be able to, user ni refer kepada klien kita able to search the appointments list for all clinic. So kita kena provide lah the functionality for that. Next is issues on completeness and consistency. So bila kita buat requirement engineering ni, especially on functional requirements, kita mesti complete lah, lengkap. So that's why we have to identify what are the activities involved, who involves, and what are the restrictions or constraints yang involved. Okay. So completeness include descriptions of all facilities required. Sebab itu akan kita hasilkan, ya. Consistency is something that we consistent about. No conflict. It's always no conflict or contradictions. Contohnya kalau macam kalau kita submit something, kita mesti ada pop-up asking, are you sure you want to continue, or dia mesti consistent dengan benda tu. And then also the graphical user interface punya, the GUI ataupun how we arrange the button, the menu, is also would be easily understood by the user. So in practice, of course, there are always loops, there are always gray area, there are always some point, something that missing, kan? So that's why we always have to check and recheck that what we do is correct. The non-functional requirement pula, the non-functional requirements is also part, is macam functional requirements, you must achieve and deliver non-functional requirements. Sebab non-functional requirements can be more critical than functional requirements. If you don't put constraint on accessibilities, what happens? Sebab tadi kita tengok ada functionality kata tak semua, contohnya dekat dalam sini kan. If you can go back on the example here, 1.5 tu dia kata access to drug cost report shall be restricted to authorized user has listed in the management access control list. So you can only get the list that been provided by the management. So kalau you tak buat, then it will affect more on the non-functional requirements. Okay. So kalau tak, so maksudnya the system purpose in system development tu, the purpose for the system to be developed must achieve the functional and non-functional requirement. Then you meet the purpose. Yeah. So what are non-functional requirements? Non-functional requirements consist of three lah. Yeah. The product requirements, the organizational requirements, and the external requirements. So on the product requirements tu, kita banyak refer on the functional requirement as well. Yeah, the product requirements related to usability requirements, efficacy, efficiency requirements. So efficiency tu ada pula breakdown dia based on performance and space requirement, dependability requirements, and security requirements. On the organizational requirement and external requirements, dia more on the soft part. Kalau product requirement, dia more on the technical part. So it relates banyak pada functionality. Tapi on the organizational and external requirements, dia more on the soft management part of the system development. Sebab dia melibatkan environmental requirements, how do the geographic, sebab dia kata tadi more than one clinic. So the clinic is probably scattered in the city. Throughout the city contohnya, throughout the metropolitans. So how are we going to do it? So you have to do it remotely. Okay, the accessibility must be do remotely, for example. So the approach that you use is suitable for that environment. Okay. External requirements is more on the ethical, regulatory, and registrative. They're more on policies, So contoh tadi, you only get the accessibility list from the management. So that one you must fulfill. Kalau tak, it will jeopardizing the non-functional requirement. Okay, so the non-function ini dia punya what we call it the description lah ya. So yang tadi saya dah jelaskan sikit. So these are the example of the non-functional requirements on the MHC PMS. Ini contoh yang ada dalam textbooks lah. Nanti saya share kamu saya dah jumpa satu textbooks yang ada dalam course information tu. Nanti kita share lah. Alright, the product requirement contoh dia dekat sini ialah the MHC, the system shall be available to all clinics during normal working hours. So dia dah stated lah. So the system must be available during that time, every time. Downtime within normal working hours shall not exceed 5 seconds in a day. So kalau ada hiccups, dia hanya benarkan hanya 5 seconds sahaja in a day. Technical glitch tu 5 seconds. Kalau more than 5 seconds happens, maka ada performance issue. Performance issue, the non-functional lah. Okay. So the team kena aware lah that anything that lag ke apa ke, less than 5 seconds. Organizational requirement, users of the system shall authenticate themselves. So how do we authenticate? Kalau macam kamu, macam mana kamu authenticate? That you are the what we call it, authoritative user to use your ITM system. System recognize you through your student ID kan? Which your student ID is generated from the course during the surat tawaran tu lah. Masa you dapat surat tawaran tu, dia dah generate student ID kan. So you are now recognized as authenticate user. So external requirement, the system shall implement patient privacy provisions as set out in I think this is something yang ada standard dia lah. This is something that we have the standard. Alright, so that is sebab dia melibatkan policies and regulation ya. So benda ni kita kena clearkan dalam, kita kena pastikan ia ada jelas dalam non-functional requirement. Alright, ada soalan ke setakat ni? Kalau tak ada, saya boleh teruskan ya. Alright, kita continue the goals and the requirements. Alright, okay. The non-functional requirement might be very difficult to state precisely, and imprecise requirements may be difficult to verify. But the process must be there. Kita still kena follow the discipline. Maksudnya, even though you cannot capture 100% well, so you must have some sort of a certain huge percentage on how it will met. Sebab of course mana-mana sistem yang human develop, dia mesti ada limitation kan. So that's why that limitation, kalau kita tak dapat achieve within this version, maybe next version it can be achieved. Okay. Contohnya dekat sini goal, katakanlah goal, the statement that we have for the non-functional requirements adalah a general intention of the user such as ease of use. Maksudnya kita nak menggunakan sistem tu dalam keadaan yang mudah. Ease of use. The system should be easy to use by medical staff and should be organized in such a way that user errors are minimized. Contohnya macam saya kata tadi, sebelum kita submit, kita confirm kan betul tak submission itu, betul tak semua data field item yang ada dalam form tu dipenuhi. Dan kita letak pula restriction dengan ada guna that asterisk red just to shows that this is a must fill in field. Okay, so that is to reduce the error. So verifiable non-functional requirements is basically kita nak make sure that benda tu is the things yang kita boleh achieve through testing. So benda tu yang kita kena tested. For example, medical staff shall be able to use all the system functions after 4 hours of training. So by 4 hours of training, they can use the system. So that is also reflected on the ease of use. 4 hours of training is relatively normal. Normal time lah for a system. Okay. Alright. So metrics that we use for non-functional requirements yang ni it could be banyak on, kalau speed tu dia more on product requirement kan. So kalau speed contohnya property tu yang kita nak check or measure is speed. So kita tengok dari segi measurement dia, unit measurement dia adalah by transaction per second. So satu transaction tu berapa lama seconds kita akan achieve. And then user or event response time. How long bila kita instructed ataupun user input and instructions, so berapa lama the system or the server will respond. And berapa lama screen refresh time. Yang ni pun biasa screen refresh time tu berapa lama. 2 second, 3 second, 5 second, 10 second. Kita rasa kalau guna sistem tu respond time kalau 10 second pun kita rasa dah lama lama sangat. Saya ada guna sistem UiTM ni, dia punya respond time tu adalah dalam 6 to 7 second. Itu pun saya rasa ya Allah lambatnya dia nak completed the task the transaction ataupun the function. Kita rasa lama. So usually about 3 second to 5 second is ample lah, ample time to have a good speed. Tapi bergantung juga pada struktur kita, accessibility berapa banyak kan. So that's why dia akan jadi lama kalau lambat kalau people access at the same time. Ease of use kita refer kepada training time 4 hours, 8 hours ataupun 16 hours, 12 hours. So kita based on time. Okay. Numbers of help frames also is a unit measurement for ease of use. Okay. Robustness, time to restart after failure. Percentage of events using causing failure. Probability of data corruptions on failure. So that is what we call the unit measurement. Contoh lah ni dia ada banyak lagi lah Ini ambil a few je for our understanding, basic understanding. Sebab kalau dalam okay, untuk dalam kelas ni mungkin tak related lagi lah. Nanti bila kamu dah masuk on the FYP mungkin you start feel this you start focus on this. Alright, now ada soalan ke? So kita pergi kepada next section. Tadi dah habis the functional and non-functional requirements. So we're going to look on what is requirement specification. Tadi kita learn about requirement engineering, the definitions of requirement, the non-functional and functional requirements. Now kita tengok requirement specification. Apa itu requirement specification? So basically it's a process of writing the user and system requirements in a requirements document. It's basically a document. Specification is a document. So user requirement, tadi kita ada belajar two types of requirements. User requirements have to be understandable by the end users and customers who do not have a technical background. So the writing style, the wording that we choose for the statement is dedicated for the reader non-technical background, whereby the system requirements are more details and the reader come from the developer teams or maintenance team is more on technical information. Okay, so this requirement is a part of the contract. So system requirements notations, we have three types of notation, which is structured natural language. Structured natural language tu maksudnya bukan novel types of tulisan novel kan, literature ke. It's very simple, direct and clear statements. Okay. Graphical notations, biasalah kita ada graphical models seperti flowchart ke, any types of diagrams ke, ya, yang kita akan belajar ni adalah UML. Unified modeling language is a type of language. Use case is the diagram. Yeah, use case diagram. Sequence diagrams are commonly used. And then you also have the third types of notation, which is the formulation, the formula, the mathematical specification. Okay. All right. So natural language specifications is written in natural language, supplemented or supported by diagrams and tables. Kalau perlu letak flowchart, letak flowchart. Kalau perlu letak item descriptions, letak dalam item description tables. Usually item description ni kita perlukan untuk storage lah, database. Used for writing requirements because it's expressive. Intuitive and universal. So biasalah as human kan, is a forms of communication, the basic forms of communication. Okay, so this means that the requirements can be understood by users and customers. So guideline for writing requirements, invent a standard format and use it for all requirements. So that's why saya bagi contoh yang dalam untuk task 1 untuk project tu, table ada dalam satu ni kan, ada banyak table pecahan dia. That is how we structured. Kalau untuk kelas ni usually requirement specification kita pakai IEEE formats. Dia ada formatting dia. So universal standard for software engineers ni ataupun information engineers ni kita pakai IEEE standard. Namun dia ada beberapa standard yang lain lah ya. Use language in a consistent way. Use shall for mandatory requirements. Should for desirable requirements. Apa yang perlu kita nak capai. Requirements apa dia. Kita akan state in the specification. Use tag highlighting to identify key parts of the requirement. Avoid the use of computer jargon. Ayat kena jelas. So ayat jargon-jargon ni or bombastic jargon ni, kalau nak pakai kena ada glossary dia. Glossary tu is where you put all the terms and the terms description. So kalau boleh minimize kan, bukan tak boleh, minimize kan. Try to choose a better wording ataupun better description. Kalau perlu pakai, you have to put some sort of glossary dalam specification. Include an explanation, a very rational explanation on why requirement is necessary. Why? Because kita nak make the user understand the reason why you put there. However, we do have problems in natural language. Excuse me. This is common lah problem yang biasa dalam specification writing, which are clarity, lack of clarity, can lead to confusion, and could have a amalgamation. Clarity is something about precision, how clear it would be when we read the requirement specification. And then requirement confusion is it's when we tends to mix up things. We try to kita masukkan yang lain tapi yang fahamnya lain ya. It's mixed up. And then amalgamations ni kita terlalu banyak put things into one statement. Okay? Kita tak clear kan, tak break down dia. So itu yang jadi express together. Kita try to express banyak perkara pada satu masa. Which is avoid. Try to avoid. Okay, structured specification is approach of writing. Where you organize your writing in the specification. So apa yang kamu buat sekarang masa task 1 ni is example lah, the basic example on how you write it. Tu belum tengok lagi how you write in words by words kan. Saya dah tengok lah, saya dah scan lah semua checkpoint 1 Ada yang hantar tapi dia bagi 2 perkara saja. So yang bawah tu dia tak buat lagi. The strength. Ada yang dah complete. Description very well. Daripada sini saya nampak dah lah group mana yang apa tu hantar complete, mana yang hantar tapi belum complete. So daripada situ kamu pun boleh evaluate yourself kan, how well you focus on the task 1. Okay, complete ke tak complete accordingly. Kalau complete tu dia description very good, ada workflow, ada figures. Bila kita cakap pasal cost, you dah bagi figures. Lepas tu item figures tu pun clear. Okay, so I know lah who did the job well done and who still need to improvise. Okay, so tak apa. From my observations, that is from my observation lah. So improve your activity lah next supaya you boleh dapat a good observation lah. Okay. So this work well for some types of requirement. Example requirements for embedded control system, but it's sometimes too rigid for writing this through. Okay. So tak apalah, ini saya skip yang tu. Okay. So these are the example of a form-based specification. Form-based specification ni pun dia ada standard dia sebenarnya. So kita guna dia specification to define functions or entity. Okay, kita describe the input and where they come from. And then we describe of output and where they go to. Okay, informations about the informations. Which is ini yang kita panggil informations about the informations. Okay, kita kata meta meta, informations about the information. Okay, needed for the computations and other entities used. Okay, descriptions of the actions to be taken, pre and post condition. Pre and post condition ni pun penting. Masa belajar programming, kalau ikutkan masa kamu belajar programming dekat atas tu, you kena describe each of your coding tu dan you kena ada pre and post condition kalau ada. So what are the implication dia kalau function itu berlaku, dan kalau function itu tak berjaya ataupun unsuccessful, apa implication dia. So this is where we describe all of the items. Ataupun kamu boleh describe dalam bentuk tabular specification. Especially tabular specification ni is a supplements natural language to support natural language, especially when you have some sort of logic ataupun ialah logic ataupun alternatives that involves for that particular action. Action ataupun function. Okay. Dekat sini kita ada example, the insulin pump system base its computations on the rate of change of blood sugar level, and the tabular specification explain how to calculate the insulation requirements for different scenarios. So the condition, for example, the sugar level falling, which when the R2 is smaller than R1, so compose dose dia berapa banyak, and so on and so forth. So these are the logic for algorithm. So nanti team developers yang akan do the coding would identify this. Where do you got this formulation? Definitely you must get this formulation from your client, from the user. And then the last, I think, subtopic for today is the requirement management, the soft part of it. All right, the process of managing changing requirements. So during the requirement phase, requirement engineering phase, there are things that can come up. Ada beberapa perkara yang boleh berlaku tanpa kita plan lah, tanpa kita control. Okay, so bila itu berlaku, it mungkin memerlukan some sort of changes in the requirements. Okay. So what we're going to do about that when things happen during the process, So new requirements emerge as a system, especially you dah define dalam kontrak, tapi user nak this new function to be added up dalam kontrak. So what you're going to do? So kalau dia added up, meaning there definitely more time for coding ataupun more time for manpower to work on the issue. So what you're going to do? Okay. It can be done, So new requirements emerge as a subsystem as being developed and after it is gone into use. Right. Next, keep tracks of each requirements and maintain links between dependence requirements. So for assessment in impact of the requirement changes. So keep tracks, yes. So you can keep track lah. Okay, especially dalam project management, kalau ada new ada changes ataupun new request from the user, you kena make sure dalam you punya project management Gantt chart is included, dalam track dalam contract pun included, and you have to somehow recalculate back the tempo ataupun the duration. Is it impacted so much on the days that added up to equip with the changes, and is there cost implication or manpower implications or for example device implication ke apa ke, so how well you gonna manage. So benda ni kena diuruskan, so you have to somehow aware lah on what's going on. So during fasa-fasa tu pun, tapi saya banyak nak fokus kat dalam requirement engineering. So the changing requirements could quite a lot, especially it affected on bila sistem tu dah complete, maybe it happens after installation. Okay, so dia boleh berlaku dekat mana-mana sistem development tu. Okay, so it could be during the installation, ada new hardware introduced, okay, maka perlu ada new interface because new hardware added in, so you must have new interface to support the instruction for the hardware, and maybe because of the business priority changes pun antara faktor yang boleh berlaku, changing on requirements. Okay. The next point is the people who pay for the system and the user, orang yang bayarnya and orang yang mengguna sistem tu basically different people. So when different people, dia punya appreciation and dia punya usage is totally different. Who pay probably not the one who use the system at the all functions, or directly use the function. Okay, so they probably doesn't appreciate that much. So that's why you must kena ada influence, or try to win their hearts so that the system can be supported. Okay. Okay, so large system usually have diverse user community with many users having different requirements and priority that may be conflicting or contradictory. Okay, so this is when we at the large ataupun organisation level lah. So sekarang ni untuk sistem kamu tu, you just fikir the business process and small part of the organisation kan. But if you want to imagine a bigger system, you boleh imagine on how your ITM system is work, on current basis. Sebab UiTM ni dia banyak cawangan. Dalam satu cawangan tu ada beberapa satellite cawangan lagi kan. So you can see how many hundred thousands of students are accessed in. Currently, we have about more than 100 students, probably near to 200 students. Postgraduate, foundation, asasi sampailah ke undergraduates. So you can imagine how we're going to use that types of system. All right. So this is about evolutions, which cross over time. Cross over time. Okay. So perubahan dia, contohnya after a long time you use the system kan. Kalau macam UiTM ni pun setelah lama kita pakai pun dia akan ada evolusi dia. Saya ingat lagi masa mula-mula pakai UFuture sistem UFuture yang kita pakai sekarang ni, masa mula-mula dia introduce tahun 2016, very poor system development. And then diorang improvise. I stop using. But then again, over the time, especially during 2019, I start using back. The features has been improvised, and then it's getting better. Right? So over time, it can happen. Kita pun ada experience using it. So initial understanding of the problem. Sometimes this happens. Sometimes kalau macam case UFuture lah, this is off record lah Kalau pun saya tengah record ni, it's because of a lack of completeness and accuracy, completeness and clarity masa buat requirements untuk UFuture. And then dia tak test, dia terus nak pakai. So that is another contributing factors lah. Kenapa sistem tu probably rejected by the user, because not very hard to use. It's not easy to use. We don't understand the concept. What are the things that they offer? Okay, because kita ni yang pakai ni, apa dia nak buat ni untuk tujuan apa ni kenapa dia buat kat sini so macam-macam question kita ask, right? So the initial requirements tu sangat-sangat penting. Then at least you kena sampai testing dulu before you bagi training dekat user. Bila you dah sampai training dekat user banyak question, that is going to be very, very hard. And then change understanding of problem, initial requirements, lepas tu change the understanding of the problem and change requirements. So it takes years to finally use. Itu pun saya tak banyak lagi guna features dalam UFuture lah. Contohnya test saya tak buat lagi online kan. I haven't used that features yet lah. Saya banyak guna attendance and store information there. Alright. Try to wrap it up, almost 1 hour here. So requirement management decisions. Alright. Requirements identifications. Okay. Of course, you have to uniquely identify what are the requirements that can be cross-referenced with other requirements. A change management process is a set of activity that assess the impact and cost of changes. Berlaku perubahan tu is basically because of impact on cost of changes and timeline lah, basically time and cost lah. Time, cost and manpower. So these 3 scope ni memang time, cost and manpower, sebab kalau you tambah hari, tambah duration, kata kalau you nak launch at certain time, but then ada perubahan, you delay the launch, is also impacted the cost as well. Time tu dah memang impacted lah, kan? And then you nak tambah features pula, definitely time is impacted, manpower is impacted and cost also impacted. So that's why kita kata ada extra charge nantilah by the end of the day, even though we agree on certain money, but then you have to charge, and then contracts probably have to include it, that required new features yang perlu ada dalam sistem tersebut. Okay. Traceability policies, ini basically the term lah, the term on requirement management decision. Traceability policies define the relationship between each requirements and between the requirements and the system design that should be recorded. Traceability policy maksudnya this is something especially when you change requirement, kita boleh trace back history. Ada kita panggil log lah, history log. So dalam history log tu kita tahu aktiviti dia dan kita tahu siapa yang ubah dia. So that is traceability policy. I don't know how you can imagine this at this time, I hope you can able to somehow imagine it lah, So tool support, tools that can be used to support the system. Alright. Problem analysis and change specification, ini basically term, nanti kamu bacalah kot. Saya tak nak go into detail dia lah, Yang penting untuk chapter ni, the requirement, definition, requirement engineering, the activities, especially the types, the functional and non-functional requirements, sebab benda tu yang kamu akan lakukan untuk project nanti. So basically, untuk chapter ni yang only up to this slide lah, Thank you very much. Alright, ada question tak? Ada soalan ke? Siapa yang tak dapat? Ya, Nur Hidayah?
Tak ada question.
Tak ada question, Alright, boleh faham ke? Are you with me? Hopefully you're okay. Adalah cawan kopi pagi-pagi ni. So, alright, kalau tak ada, kita move to asynchronous. I will end the record for the session,